Thanks very much. I want to bring in Congressman Patrick McHenry. He's a Republican from North Carolina. He's the chief deputy whip. He's also scheduled, by the way, to meet with President Trump in less than 2 hours from now. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Hey, Wolf, thanks for having me on.
I know you're incredibly busy today. Good to have you. There's been some serious opposition already expressed, forget about the Democrats, by a bunch of your Republican colleagues in the House and the Senate. Utah Senator Mike Lee, for example, he released a statement just a little while ago saying, in part, let me read it to you, "This is not the Obamacare repeal bill we've been waiting for. It is a missed opportunity and a step in the wrong direction." He continued, "We promised the American people we would drain the swamp and end business as usual in Washington. This bill does not do that." What do you say to that criticism?
Well, he shouldn't be criticizing the bill that the President, the Vice President, the Secretary of Health and Human Services support and have explicitly endorsed. What we've been doing in the House is different what they've been doing in the Senate among Republicans. Certainly that's the case. We've been at writing this proposal for the last year. We brought in every Republican in the House of Representatives. We've had 150 Republicans come through with briefings, policy discussions, substantive debate behind closed doors over the last 2 months, and we've crafted a very good piece of legislation that really works with the three corners of Republicans right now, the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And I think we've got a piece of legislation that can pass the House, pass the Senate, and be signed by the President and repeal an entitlement program for the first time in our nation's history.
But you know, Congressman, you've got a whole bunch of Republicans, conservative Republicans, including some members of the House Freedom Caucus, expressing deep concerns. This is just a new entitlement program. You're the chief deputy whip. How are you working to get those Republicans on board? Because you're probably not going to have any Democrats supporting this legislation in the House or the Senate.
Well, look, we have refundable tax credits to enable those that are on the margins to buy more affordable health insurance. Certainly that's dramatically different than what is Obamacare. And those that are benefiting from that, the established corporate interests that are benefiting from Obamacare as it now stands, certainly are not quite as warm to our proposal because it doesn't benefit their corporate interests as much. We certainly have Republicans that say they don't like the nature of the tax credits. And almost every one of those Republicans criticizing this plan have in the past or are currently co-sponsors of legislation that use tax credits to increase the affordability of health insurance. So they need to look at their own policy portfolio before criticizing what is in this piece of legislation that we've been working on.
As you know, Congressman, there are moderate Republicans who aren't very happy with some of the proposed changes in the plan that would cut Medicaid expansion, for example, that happened under Obamacare. If that program is cut, as we just heard from Christina Alessi, it could potentially leave millions of people relying on that Medicaid coverage without any coverage. What do you say to those fellow Republicans, including a bunch of Republican governors right now, who are especially concerned about that?
Again, look, Ronald Reagan proposed this in the early 1970s. We would block grant Medicaid to the states. It was in our House Republican budget in 1995, passed by the House and Senate in 1995. This has been long-held Republican orthodoxy that we return Medicaid back to the states and allow flexibility and that innovation that occurs state by state in order to better deliver for those that are indigent and on the margins. Certainly those that are benefiting from nearly double-digit yearly increases in Medicaid spending don't want to change that system and reduce that increase. But, Wolf, there is no cut to Medicaid. Medicaid will spend more next year and the following year and for the next decade, 2 decades. What we're talking about is trying to control the increase and give states full control over this population. One of the complaints out of our plan is that we are generous to those that are disabled and the most sickly in the Medicaid population. I think there's just a natural discussion we have to have about our social safety net and making sure we deliver for those that are truly in the most need. And our plan does that in the House.
A very quick question. I know we're running out of time. The whole discussion, you have the votes, presumably you have the votes in the House and the Senate to repeal Obamacare. You need 218 in the House. That's a majority. You have that, presumably, unless a whole bunch of Republicans bolt. You're not going to get many, or you're not going to get any Democratic support, I don't believe. In the Senate, you need a simple majority to repeal. You need 51 votes. You have a 52-48 majority in the Senate. But as you well know, in the Senate, given their complicated rules, filibuster rules, to replace the existing law, you need 60 votes. 52 Republicans, you don't have the Democrats. Is this whole conversation really going to end up moot?
No, and this is the reason why we've done repeal and replace in this package. That was the need out of our House Republican members that said we have to do as much replace as possible because we don't know
but you can't completely
what the Democrats
replace
are willing to filibuster.
In this legislation, you can't completely replace it. You need subsequent legislation that will require 60 votes in the United States Senate. And I take it you haven't worked with any Democrats in crafting this legislation that might make it more appealing to them.
Well, no, this one we can do on our own. That next package will have to be a bipartisan majority for these fundamental insurance marketplace reforms that are going to make health insurance much more portable and more competitive. This is the opening discussion on repealing Obamacare. And if we recall how Obamacare is put in place, they had a 60-vote package when they had 60 votes in the Democrat-controlled Senate, 60 Democrats in the Senate, and then they used this reconciliation package to make changes to it. Likewise, to fully undo the damage of Obamacare, we're going to need both packages. This is an opening act, Wolf. This is the first opening, major opening in this Republican Congress with this Republican president, and more will have to be done. And certainly it's going to be an interesting, exciting year. But as you've asked about the question of votes here in the House and the Senate, we have the votes for this package. We will pass this package almost as it has been introduced with some minor changes. And I think we'll have this on the president's desk in the next month or 3-4 weeks. And I think that will show results for us. But we are Republicans here. So we're not going to do this in a simple fashion, and it won't be without drama. That's the nature of the Republican Party, with various interests as they're arrayed, and independent-minded people that we have to bring together for some level of consensus. That's my job. That's the work that we do here on the Hill, and that's why it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting, Congressman Patrick McHenry. And as you know, in the Senate, you got 52 Republicans, but a few of them are already saying they don't like the cuts to Planned Parenthood. They may vote against it. If 3 Republicans bolt, you could potentially, the repeal part could be in deep trouble as well. So when you say it's going to be dramatic and exciting, I agree with you. It certainly will be. Congressman Patrick McHenry, North Carolina, thanks for joining us.